Welcome everyone. Today I am taking a look at one of Chile's latest videos called Copsucker, Katie's Mind Blown by Terry V. Ohio. You know, he could just as well have said police supporter, but he came out with the non-insult insult instead. Copsucker is one of those words like bootlicker or globetard, for instance, that only serves to make those who use it feel more secure with their insecurities. In this video, Chili thinks his opinions are fact primarily due to his bias towards law enforcement in general. And as an example of his thinking opinions are fact, I have found some TikTok videos from Chili that illustrate this.
Let's talk about prison and the war on drugs. This is 1920. The first jump in our prison industry is during Prohibition when we criminalized a chemical. Notice, it's flatline, there's nobody in jail. How come that is? Because our country is founded on the principle of liberty, that you're free and you don't go and live in a cage. Then right here, Terry passes in 68, and as you know, you saw the stick on there, that's when the prison industry starts. But the real helper to the prison industry is Richard Nixon. He creates the war on drugs, he creates it because the Vietnam War is going on and he can't get a handle on the community. So take a look at that prison history. Go back and take a look at this prohibition. Officer Madwin, how you doing?
Hey there. Just want to let you know the number one reason I arrest someone is because of drugs or because I think they have drugs.
You think? What does that mean?
It means I can send him to prison either way and let the courts figure it out.
He can arrest you because he thinks you have drugs. Matt versus Ohio says police can't just run in your house and grab evidence against you. 2 years later, the Supreme Court passes curve that says cops all they have to do is knock and announce and run in. 64 Civil Rights Act passed, which gives you freedom. 4 years later, they allow cops to discriminate against you. If we don't get the overturn Terry hashtag going, we're gonna miss our window. We gotta get it going. We're gonna miss our window. The cases that killed Eric Garner are Atwater versus City of Lago Vista, Terry v. Ohio, and Graham versus Connor. So surely Graham versus Connor barely squeaked by. The case that says that the reasonable officer on the scene will use objective reasonableness in the amount of force that they use. So we've talked about this. You cannot be objective about the situation you are the subject in. We talked about this. So surely though Graham versus Connor with John Paul Stevens and William Brennan and Thurgood Marshall on the court, surely this passed 6-3 or even 5-4. No, this passed unanimously 9-0. That the reasonable officer on the scene will decide how much force to use on you or your brother or your dad or your uncle or your family. And so when you say, hey, how come Thurgood Marshall would vote for this? Because they're all bad. Thurgood Marshall also voted for Terry laws. You celebrate Ruth, you celebrate Thurgood, you celebrate Anthony. They're all tyrants. We gotta overturn Graham versus Connor. We talk a good game here in America. Our country is founded on the principles of liberty, due process, and freedom. But unless you get in trouble, and then you will be a slave and live in a penal system, a lot like North Korea. Are there any other countries in the world, that says freedom and free, and then has a slave system attached to their liberty system? We're based on liberty, unless of course you used to be a slave and then we'll arrest you and make you a slave again. Some fascinating things happened as I built the wall and the history of institutional racism in our country. Take a look at the lynching chart. Here's the lynching chart over here. Now, I found more lynchings than the NAACP lists. However, the NAACP starts in 1882 and it ends in about 1965. Can you see the chart? You see it right here? Now, on the other side is the prison chart. The prison chart takes off, guess when? Terry v. Ohio, right there. That's when it takes off. And take a look at the shape of it. Look at the shape of the prison chart. Incredible. If I took a pin and I magically could take a pin and stick it right there on the lynching chart, and I could make it swing around. I could do it in Photoshop. It would be the same shape as the prison chart. It would be the same shape. Do you see that? I didn't do that. Those are just statistics. When the lynchings end, the prison system begins.
The last one about the decrease in lynchings correlating to the increase in prison population was very interesting. As he has said before, and that TikTok shows, he thinks Terry v. Ohio was passed solely to target and arrest black people, and that laws were made for black people. From my interpretation of the explanation he gives, Terry v. Ohio was upheld and used to incarcerate black people instead of lynching them. Now, I am not a fan of private prisons because, in my opinion, they exist solely to perpetuate treating prisoners like second-class humans, as they are seen as a business and only care about the bottom line. But do we overturn Terry v. Ohio and eliminate jails and prisons altogether and start lynching again? I mean, the U.S. is going backwards more and more, especially after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Could it be a matter of time when we fall back to the Jim Crow era again? It's definitely something to think about another time, though. Now is the time to get on with the video.
Terry versus Ohio is the linchpin of death and the prison state and police state that we live in the United States of America. So there's Terry versus Ohio right there. And then if you take a look, see, if you take a stick, and I'll put a stick on the wall for you so you can see it yourself. That line right there is the prison complex. That's the industrial prison complex. So here's Terry versus Ohio right here. The prison system in 1968 is 300,000 people. And now today, what we're looking at is over 2.5 million people. 2.5 million people in prison. And then look down that stick.
Why did you change your pool cue pointer out for a yardstick, Chili? Can't you spring some money on a proper pointer like a laser pointer, or a silly one like with a hand with its index finger pointing or something?
And that's the year of is 1968, all the way ubiquitously down the timeline. So there's an XY axis. The X is the years, and then moving forward is the Y. So this is in 1968 when Terry v. Ohio passes. And then right here, this is when the prison system takes off like a rocket. When you see the police kill somebody, it's legal. It's perfectly legal. It's because of Terry versus Ohio that puts officer safety over your civil liberties.
The police killing someone is not always legal nor justified. If that were the case, the officers that have been convicted of murder would not have been charged at all. You know this, Chili, but perpetuate that if a cop kills someone, it's automatically murder. No police officer wants to kill anyone. Case in point, this following video.
Fuck, dude! What the fuck did he do that for?
Come on. Here, let me show. Hop in the car. Go, cheek. Here you go. Hop in.
Wait a second.
That officer was emotionally distraught and probably was ordered to undergo therapy. That is because police officers are human beings with emotions, not cold-blooded killing machines like you perpetuate.
When they put officer safety over the top of your rights, that's when we lost all of our rights, Katie. That's when we lost all of our rights. You see how that works?
Yeah.
Because there's the prison system right there. Look how low it is. So did people become more criminal, do you think, after 1968? Or do you think that the government passed laws to arrest people? This is Terry versus Ohio. And then right here, the prison population is at 300,000 people. And then Richard Nixon declares war on drugs. And then Ronald Reagan creates the for-profit prison industry. And see, the prison industry, it goes up dramatically from 300,000 up to over 400,000 to 500,000. We doubled the prison industry in Nixon's administration alone. Double the amount of people go and live in a dungeon. So the question I asked you was, in 1968, when the prison industry starts to take off like a rocket, did people in America become more criminal, or did the government pass legislation that made laws that make people criminals?
There you go. Blaming people's behaviors on laws that, for the most part, existed prior to 1968. You were able to avoid prison by taking a drug diversion program, which, if that had happened to you 15 to 20 years prior, your ass would have been in prison for at least 4 to 5 years, since drug diversion programs didn't exist in California until 1994.
What would the laws be?
I'm
lost.
The war on drugs. And also, this right now here, this Terry v. Ohio, what this allows police to do is to walk up and grab you based on their suspicion. Do you know why that was passed in 1968? See the year right here, 1968? Why do you think they passed where cops could grab you in 1968? Let me give you a clue real quick. Here's a clue. Why do you think they did that? Why do you think in 1968 they made it so that the cops could run up and grab you? Let me give you a little bigger clue here. Okay, does that help you understand why they wanted?
Because of people.
Right, they did it because they didn't want the civil rights movement to move forward. They wanted the civil rights movement to fail. That's the whole point. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the whole point. See, this is what happened right here. And so when they killed Martin Luther King Jr., that was the final straw. That was the final straw. That was the end of the civil rights era when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. From there, after this happens in April of 1968, and then June 6th of 1968, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. And then on June 10th of 1968, the Supreme Court, an unelected body, passed Terry v. Ohio that puts officer safety over your rights.
I have linked the Supreme Court case Terry v. Ohio 392 U.S. 1 1968 in the description below if you want to read more about it. I do urge at least reading the syllabus as it will give you details on what happened. Details that are very important as to why the Supreme Court ruled as it did. Terry v. Ohio was argued on December 12, 1967 and ruled on June 10, 1968. What coincidentally transpired between those two dates likely had no bearing on the outcome of this case. An historical marker was put in place in 2017 commemorating the incident. It reads, Terry v. Ohio. This nation's landmark case on the U.S. Constitution's Fourth Amendment, protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, began in Cuyahoga County. In 1967, for the first time in history, African Americans both argued and heard a case at the U.S. Supreme Court. Defense attorney Louis Stokes and assistant prosecutor Reuben Payne debated limits on police searches before the first African American Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall. The Supreme Court held that Officer McFadden's frisk and seizure of guns from suspects on Euclid Avenue about to rob a jewelry store was constitutional. They upheld Cuyahoga County Appellate Court judges Joseph Silbert, Joseph Artle, and J.J.P. Corrigan and adopted the rule trial judge Bernard Friedman issued. Police may search for weapons if they have a reasonable suspicion that a suspect is armed and dangerous.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So what rights do you have, Katie? What are your rights? Do you know your First Amendment rights?
Well, you have freedom of speech. You have.
Good.
Yeah.
What else you got? What other rights do you have? I'm gonna come back here for you.
I know you have. Yeah, I know you have the right to their arms. I don't know the other ones. I can't remember, but I know some of them.
So you have a Second Amendment right?
Yeah.
So just so you know, down the line here, your First Amendment is going to be based on liberty, your right to speech, your right to press, right to assemble, petition, right to freedom of religion, and then your Second Amendment right, your right to bear arms, your right to bear arms, and then your Third Amendment right is the right not to house troops. It's not up here because it doesn't affect our civil liberties. And then your Fourth Amendment right is the right to be free in your person, houses, papers, and effects. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
The Fourth Amendment's going to be right down here. You see where it says the Fourth Amendment? Because what Terry v. Ohio does is it takes away your Fourth Amendment. So if I just slide this down, it says the Fourth Amendment is the right of the people. So who's the Fourth Amendment belong to? It belongs to the people. To be secure in their persons. To be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects.
I noticed that you had the entire amendment printed on your timeline, yet stopped reading after effects. You know the saying that those who can't do, teach? Well, you can't do nor teach. So here, let me do your job for you and read the entire Fourth Amendment, not just cherry-pick the first part. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched, and the persons or things to be seized. Note, there is no hard stop after effects. In fact, there are no hard stops until the very end of the amendment. If you are teaching Katie about our rights, where is the explanation on the background of the Fourth Amendment, Chili? Why was it included in the Constitution at all? Tisk tisk, Chili. I thought you were a constitutional law scholar. Oh well, I have linked it for you in my description so people can read it for themselves instead of buying the cherries that you pick.
Let me ask you a real easy question. If a cop pulls in behind you, does your stomach go through your throat?
I mean, sometimes, but that's just because, like, you're like, oh crap, I did something wrong. I mean, that's because, like, you sped or something.
Okay, so you think you've done something wrong if the police are pulling you over? Is that what happens to you? How many times have you been pulled over?
I mean, not necessarily, because it has happened before. Like, if your lights out, they're trying to protect you because, like, safety hazards too. I mean.
Oh, you think they pull you over to protect you for your lights being off, or you think they're pulling over to try to give you a DWI?
I mean, no. I mean, honestly, like, I have family that's cops and stuff, and I know that the reasons aren't all, like bad things. I know that a lot of the time that, I mean, and that's their job. I mean, and
What's their job?
To
take people to the dungeon? To take people to the prison system? That's their job?
Car lights being out is a safety issue, so is driving under the influence, even if it's 2 a.m. and no one is around. Not every stop is for a DUI, nor for no reason, nor just for a cop to flex his power and handcuff people and throw them in jail. Police exist to uphold laws and keep law and order. That means getting a warning or a traffic ticket or getting arrested for breaking a law. You are really projecting your bias instead of teaching because you have had multiple traffic infractions and committed other crimes for the past 30 years. Looking at your public record regarding traffic violations, you have operated a vehicle without a driver's license and a valid driver's license. Negligent driving, driving on a canceled or suspended license, red light violation and improper turn, stopping, parking, or leaving vehicle on a freeway, and the newest one, having a cell phone in your hand while driving. All of those are valid reasons for you to be pulled over, and probably none of which landed you in jail. And you also have been found guilty in absentia for the stopping, parking, or leaving vehicle charge.
Not necessarily.
But
They
if
do
you're-
it to protect you because let's say you are drinking and driving, you could hurt someone else.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it that way.
Okay. So
And that's your first one, police. So like if you are drinking and driving or something, and you put like someone else's, like you put your own locking on it and someone else's, I hope someone pulls you over because like you shouldn't
Sure.
be doing stuff like that. 'Cause that can hurt more people than just you.
what if you just happened to forgot to put your lights on? What if you just
Well,
didn't put
I
your
mean-
lights on? So then you get pulled over by the police, and what's their job then? Well, after they realize you're not drinking, what is their job? Does their job end?
They tell you to turn your lights on, and then they say you can drive away.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yeah, they.
Yeah. How many
Yeah.
times? How many times have you been pulled over, Katie?
I've never been pulled over, but I've been with someone who's been pulled over.
You've never
And
been
that's
pulled
what they
over,
did. I haven't, no.
and you drive a
But
car.
I've been with someone, yes, but I've been with someone who has.
Uh huh. And how'd that go?
It went well. He was really nice about it.
The cop was really nice about it.
He just said he didn't want us to get hurt.
Okay, so let's just say though you don't have your lights on and you get pulled over, and the cop pulls up and he says you've been drinking. You say no, I have not been drinking, even though you shouldn't answer any questions. But then you have not been drinking. Does his job end right there and he lets you go?
I mean, if you can tell if someone's
Okay, but
been
I'm just saying, you can tell. How can you tell?
like by looking at their eyes, and you can tell by the way they're talking.
Okay, perfect. So what she just said, you guys, is the definition of Terry versus Ohio. She just said it. She just nailed it. She's exactly correct. If the cop believes that you're drinking, then you're drinking.
No. That is not true at all. That is why officers are trained to do certain tests to make sure a driver is under the influence or not. You know, those tests that they ran on the woman that you said was excessive and for which you got your stopping, parking, or leaving vehicle traffic ticket while recording and yelling across the street at them?
That's what Terry v. Ohio does.
No, I'm not saying that then you're drinking. I said that you can tell if someone could possibly be,
Oh.
and then they'll eventually do a test on you.
You're actually correct. You are correct. All it takes because of Terry versus Ohio is the cop to believe that you've been drinking, even if you haven't been. You can take a breathalyzer, and if he still believes you've been drinking, then you can still be arrested for DUI. Did you know that? Did you know that?
You can still be arrested.
Yes.
No, because they have to do a test on you. They have to
Okay.
do a breathalyzer test and all that.
Let me say it to you again, Katie. You're super cute. I just adore you.
Oh no, you didn't, you condescending asshole. She is right. They can't just arrest you for drunk driving if the breathalyzer registers under 0.8% limit or none at all. And may I remind you that being under the influence isn't just about alcohol. It could be a driver was sleepy from medication or no sleep the night before. That is why the other tests are necessary. Once again, your biased assumptions are showing.
Let me just tell you the truth. If the cop is reasonably suspicious that you've been drinking and you do not, and you take a breathalyzer and it blows 0, you can still be arrested for DUI. Did you know that? In your head, you can't compute that, can you? You literally are going, that's just not true, aren't you? In your head, I mean, just to be honest. And I don't mind, you can say it. In your mind, you're saying if I blew on the straw and it blew 0, that he has to let me go. Is that correct? She has to face the fact that the people who are law enforcement are her family and that they arrest people based on their suspicion, based on Terry versus Ohio.
It seems to me that if Chili got his way and Terry v. Ohio was overturned and law enforcement became nothing more than digital detainment with humans used as glorified tripods, with people in each ear telling them how to handle a situation, there would be a lot more crime. Which makes sense to me when it comes to Chili because he says no victim, no crime, and feels he can pick and choose what laws he follows no matter what time of day or night it is. As if laws only exist during business hours. It's the rules for me but not for thee attitude that is so pervasive these days. That's not how a civilized society works.
Hit the like button. Just hit the like button.
Thank you, Chili. Also, don't forget to share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Oh, and make sure you hit the notification bell and click all so you'll get notified when I upload new content. Possibly, maybe, you know it's YouTube after all. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.